Shade Tree Commission meeting. First order of business, we'll do Pledge of Allegiance. Audience, feel free to join us. Thank you. Okay, item number 3 on the agenda, meeting minutes from the last meeting, February 23rd. Anyone have any comments regarding the minutes? I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, James. All right. Item number 4, the consent agenda. So these are addresses that we've previously taken a look at. And I'll hand it off to James and Matt on the first address for any noteworthy items, 737 Burwood Road.
Yeah, so James and I did site visits and review of both. The shade tree protection fencing was perfect on both. One there aren't any trees being removed on Woodcrest. So both sites look great. The plans looked appropriate. So.
And for 737, the 4 that are being removed, none are heritage?
None.
Okay. So no compensatory required.
Right.
Good deal. Any other comments, questions? I'll make a motion to pass or approve the consent agenda. Do you have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Item number 5. This is where we involve the audience. So do we have anyone representing 121 Sproul Road with us tonight? All right. If you could come up to the front here where the mic is and present your plan. We should be able to bring it up on screen. You can lay it right on that table. And then just introduce yourselves, the project, and...
Put it here?
Yep, you got it. And then you'll see up on screen, it'll show up. You might need to flip it around. Or no, that's the right way. You got it.
And make sure we ask him a lot of questions and keep him here for at least 2 hours.
Will do. There should be a pointer up there, and make sure you speak into the mic, just so we have everything on the record. Appreciate it.
Sure. So my name is John Verbrugge. I'm a registered consulting arborist from Radnor Tree Service. I'm representing Mr. O'Neill here in regard to the tree selection. From what I understand, the contractor or the site engineer, Fioravanti, they originally came up with this plan for, you have a pointer? All right, pointer here. Whoa. This was the original plan. It was basically some hedge maples, some Serbian spruces, and some Swiss stone pines, which obviously weren't from the recommended list of approved trees for Radnor, and in regard to the quantity of trees as well. We have now come up with a much more heavily planted project site with in lieu of replacing, so there's 97 trees being on the property, 13 of which are ash trees and another 14 are Norway maples. So still including everything is 97 trees. We're going to be able to plant approximately 56 trees on the property, most of which are shade trees of sugar maple, red maple, swamp white oaks, and then a grouping of some Coosa dogwoods and green giant arborvitae on the property. Those are most logical in respect to the terrain and the current conditions as it is now. And then the balance would be a fee in lieu of for approximately 41 trees.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know we did review details of the project the previous time that you were before us. So does anyone have any questions regarding the details of the project as a refresher?
I was looking at the plans, and it looks like 46 trees are going to be removed. And I think the tree chart had like 97 being.
97 replacement
Plate.
trees.
And 46 of those are canopy trees?
Correct.
Okay, so this is accurate. I guess I wasn't geeing up with what the verbal was.
Sorry.
I know we discussed previously that you're doing everything you can to retain as many existing trees as possible. So I do recall having that discussion. As far as the trees going in, I know that those were revised as well, so thank you for doing that. Were there any other changes to the project or location of where the trees are going to be planted from when we spoke previously that are worth noting?
Basically, it was just a complete redo of the plant palette and adding more plants in better locations that were more suitable and obviously on the list of recommended species, with a primary focus on shade trees.
Okay. I did just get a note that Eileen joined us. James or Eileen, do you have any comments or questions regarding this project?
Yeah, hey Seth, thank you, and I'm sorry I have to join remotely tonight. I have no questions because I'm not sure which agenda item you're on.
Apologies, I thought you could see the plan. So we're on 121 Sproul Road,
Got it?
which should be linked in the agenda.
Yep, got it. Okay, so I just pulled it up. So no, right now I don't have any questions.
No worries. James?
I'm just going over the, I didn't see a tree replacement list, so just, do we have the right numbers up there? Did anybody look at it?
Yeah, so the numbers are correct. I was just going over those. If you bring up the plans, James, and then basically bottom right of the plan is what you can see for the proposed trees and the replacement tree table. So we have some sugar maple, swamp white oak, red maple, green giants, and some Coosa dogwoods. So a fair mix of large shade, some green giants, and some dogwoods for color. So I'm fine with this.
Okay, but they're not replacing, I'm sorry, I might have missed it. They're not replacing for the whole thing. They were doing something else as well?
Correct. So fee in lieu of for the balance of trees. So this
Oh,
is,
God. Okay, that makes more sense then. Sorry.
yeah, so this is a new proposed dwelling, and obviously there's some clearing required for that, so.
And I believe the fee in lieu of, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, is because they've maximized their designated planting zone with shade trees, which then diminished the zones for ornamental, correct?
Correct.
Great.
Basically,
Okay.
if you look at the site, it's on a slope.
Sure.
And once retaining walls and everything else gets built, it's kind of illogical to try and add or stuff more in for the benefit of the plants 5 years from now, even 10 years from now, so.
Sure. Yep.
So Seth, I have two questions for the tree experts. Why are there so many elm trees on this property? Are these really old elms, or are they just?
Well, elms have an invasive tendency, so the whole property has been untouched for several
Okay.
decades, I would believe.
Okay.
And there's mulberries, a lot of ash, Norway maples predominantly, and then some elms. I'm sure John would agree with, the elms can be invasive.
Right, and they can. Right, and also, but also they're at risk, just generally at risk unless you do root treatments and stuff. So,
Yeah.
Okay, my other question is sugar maple a good idea?
3 years ago, 2 years ago, we weren't recommending them. They're coming back and they're starting to look a little healthier. I don't know if it's climatic related. Are you using Green Mountain? Is that the variety?
That would be
Yeah.
ideal.
Yep. As long as it's a cultivar, as long as it's not a straight variety.
Great. I think everything checks out. Obviously, we don't like to see a ton of trees being removed, but this is a necessity for the project and the lot. Doing everything that they can in due diligence, so much appreciated. Any other comments or questions before we make a motion? All right.
Seth, my only question is, and apologies if you already covered this, is just looking at the heritage trees. They don't look to be in the way of the proposed dwelling. So I was just wondering the rationale for taking them out. I'm looking at number 15 and I'm looking at number 42, and 42 may be the ash. Nope, it's the tulip poplar.
So
Oh, number 43.
Yeah, 15's the one up front. near the-
Yeah, and 43 I can see is an ash, so I understand that. But number 15, it doesn't look like it's in the way of the proposed dwelling.
So tree number 15 is obviously the most predominant tree on the property. It does have codominant leads that emanate from very low to the ground. So exposing this tree, and it's been in the forest for its whole life, there's not a good balanced canopy. As soon as everything around it would get cleared, it's going to look like a piece of broccoli sticking there, and it also has a severe structural defect in it that mitigation would not be of a benefit to the tree long-term on the site, and it would become more of a risk to a new home.
Okay, and I understand the balancing, so it's somewhat aesthetic purposes. And what about number 27? That's towards on the left-hand side towards the back of the property. That doesn't seem to be in the way either, and maybe aesthetically that wouldn't be a problem to leave that tree.
Again, same thing. All of the tulip poplars on this property are beyond their point of usefulness in the general landscape. And again, when everything else gets removed and when this retaining wall gets built within several feet of the root system, the tree's going to die. It's too mature to try and save and do root pruning and vertical mulching. Just based on the site changes that are required, it's going to stress out that mature tree, and it's going to be a removal within 3 years.
Any other follow-ups or questions?
No, so really the whole lot is being clear-cutted.
Unfortunately, it is.
Just one recommendation, Seth, is it seems like there's going to be a good amount of money with the fee in lieu of. Maybe we can recommend to the township that we have a separate planting, since this is being completely cleared, and target an area that we could maybe
Sure.
do some good with that money.
Yeah, my thoughts would be we use this towards the fall planting and we can, find some spots.
Yeah, but I think we should try to get more canopy trees than ornamentals,
Yeah.
since we're losing so many.
Sure, totally agree.
Township's losing so many heritage trees here, and it looks like, close to what, 10,000, the fee in lieu of, I think, right? I don't see a number up here, so I'm not really sure, but
Yeah, we'll have to get those details settled after the fact.
yeah, it could be a nice planting. They'll come out of it.
Sure, agree.
That's going to have to be discussed tonight, so Leah can put it in the minutes.
Okay,
Yep.
so let's do the quick math here.
41, right? Times 8,300 is,
8,300.
sorry,
John.
my
Oh,
math
man.
is wrong. 10,250.
10,250, thank you, John. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Right.
All right, thank you. Best of luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the efforts. Okay, next address, 187 South Spring Mill. I'm assuming the other people in the room. Good evening, just state your name, relation to the project.
Hi, I'm
and just
Tracy
give a-
Carney, one of the partners, one of the owners.
Great. So we're most interested in, it looks like you're just moving some dirt around, no trees to be removed.
Correct.
Okay. And then again, just make sure you speak into the mic. You can use the magical orange pointer.
Okay.
All you, go ahead. Just
Oh.
give us an overview of the project.
Sure.
Dirt being removed.
It's a renovation and addition. There'll be some new construction in the front and then some in the back. There are no trees within 25 feet of the area that's being built, so they're not specified on the drawing.
Yeah, Seth, one of the reasons that this wasn't put on the consent agenda was James and I just had a hard time, like, discerning details on the plan. So really, the only reason the applicants are here is to indicate where the shade tree protection is.
Your egress?
Yeah, ingress, egress of equipment.
How we're going in and out of the property?
Yeah, and also, and any trees that exist that would need to be protected. So
Sure.
if you can just do those three things.
Sure. Sorry, the first thing you said?
First thing was shade tree protection around any trees that.
Sure. There are very few trees that, on the property, it's a very overgrown property. There's a lot of old privet and burning bush, honeysuckle. So there are some trees along the driveway, but they're not at risk. We're currently working on the property next door, so all the laydown area will be next door because that's also clear. Access will be on the driveway that's existing, so that again doesn't, create any problems. We'll have, a silt sock in the back, down along here, down in this area. And there, like I said, there's really not a lot of trees along there. There's some scrubby stuff, but not any real trees.
I do see, it looks like you have detailed some tree protection around the drive.
Up in the front along Spring Mill Road, yeah, there are a couple of trees. There's like I don't remember, I think there's a dogwood and there might be an American holly on the corner back over here.
Okay.
But they're pretty far away.
Okay. Where
So, yeah.
else would you have tree protection? It looks.
It looks like there's some down here
Yeah,
along this area.
okay. But anywhere where construction equipment or anything else that's happening?
Yeah,
we have
most of the
tree
equipment will
protection?
be parked probably on the property next door because like I said, it's all flat and open already. So there's really no need to bring, a lot of heavy equipment in areas that it doesn't need to be.
And it looks like the dirt that's being moved is for the back patio. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Largely, yeah.
Okay.
There'll be a little bit in the front where the garage will be expanded, but other than that, mostly in the back.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? James, Eileen?
Coming up the driveway to get to the work in the back, where are you going around the other side of the house?
No, we'll be able to go straight down the driveway. It's pretty open all along.
Okay, gotcha. I took a look from Google Maps as well, and it looks like there's, on your property line to your left, that there is some larger trees on that side, maybe the neighbor's side.
I think that they're on the neighbor side. I took a little walk myself this afternoon so I would be familiar with what was there, and I believe they're on the neighbor side.
Yeah, so if that's the case, I'd just be careful with any equipment if they do decide to go around back, not to damage any of the trees on the neighboring property. I'm not sure
Right.
that you have too much large stuff going back there, but
Yeah,
Just
I think the access will be along here in this area rather than on this side. We own
Got
this
it.
one, and there's
Perfect.
nothing there.
thank you.
Okay. Anything else? I'll make a motion to pass.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda, tree removal without approval or clearing permits. There's none on the agenda. I know there's a couple
Yep.
floating around, and John's going to mention one of them.
So I have two to talk about tonight. So the first one, which is not really a violation or unauthorized, which is 743 Parks Run. So originally, the developer built a home and later on found out that the utility interface, I believe was Aqua, had to come through, or the electric had to come through the root system of a few larger trees. It was not shown on the plan. Those trees were to be preserved when they came in front of you. So obviously, they had to be removed. However, the applicant had to, I think it was 12 trees they had to plant, I believe. Wasn't it, Leah, 12 trees? So then the house sold. So the tree company applied for a permit because of all these trees dying, okay, other trees within the site. So I went out, looked, and those trees were to remain as well. So we're kind of in limbo. I think Mr. Norsini is going to pick it up a little bit just because of the logistics of him being involved at that current time. So right now, we have no information other than we know trees are coming to us. We just don't know when and how. So if you hear Parks Run, you know what it is. On Friday morning, this past Friday, 255 Upper Gulf Road, my phone started blowing up regarding residents calling me saying there's large hazardous trees being removed. The tree company was not a regular in the township, and they weren't licensed. At that point, Mr. Doug Meter went out to the site and was told by the homeowner to get off the property and to get a judgment against them. So then I spoke with Bill White, Rick, during the day, and they sent the police out there, and pretty much the same thing, get a judgment against me or don't come on my property. So right now, that is in limbo as well. So I'm sure we'll get some information from Mr. Norsini in the future about those two.
Great. Thanks for that update, John. So we'll look out for those. And then one other, Steve had just sent over to me today that I'm sure we'll review in the near future, is 203 St. David's Court. There's some grading and tree removal violations, so we'll get news of that.
Seth?
Yes?
So I don't know if anyone's noticed this, John, whether you have, but 505 South Wayne, which is the house on the corner by Conestoga, which was derelict for many years, is being redone, and there's a tremendous pile of boulders that have been delivered to this property, and they've been all over the trees. Now, they've moved them now.
As of when?
As of this week.
So as of yesterday, I think they were still there because Mr. Norsini called me about that, and I am going out tomorrow.
Great.
Because they wanted to give him till the end of the day today because he was getting fined, I believe, per day.
Yeah.
For having those rocks on there.
Well,
So
I mean,
go-
they put new trees in, and then they dumped the rocks right on top of them.
Got it. So I'm going out tomorrow anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Great, that's great.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. Anyone have anything else that's noteworthy for tree removals or violation notices? All right.
Just,
Yes.
I was going to do this offline, but at the corner of Spring Mill and Lancaster Avenue, there's a little carriage house there, and right next to that, there's going up Spring Mill Road on your left-hand side, there's about 7 or 8 big trees that seem to have been removed this week. I don't know if anyone's aware of that, or there's something we can just do offline.
What was the address, Frank?
I honestly, I don't know whose property it is.
Okay.
There's no fences or clear delineation.
What were the
But-
crossroads one more time?
Lancaster and Spring Mill
Okay, just taking a note of it.
are 320 and 30.
Okay. All right, anything else for removals or violation notices? Great. All right, so moving in to item 8, old business. We'll kick it off with the spring tree planting. So in front of us, we should have a packet, and these are just printouts of emails, James and Eileen, so you can reference the email that Frank had sent regarding the spring bare root planting, and then also the email that Jenny had sent regarding the spring planting as well. So Frank, we'll let you go first, and then Jenny, and we can have a conversation about where we are with everything. And thanks again for all your hard work on this.
Well, I'm going to take the parks side of it, Jenny, if you want to take the resident side. Does that sound reasonable? Okay, on the park side, we have about 30 trees. We're going to be putting 5 of them on the Radnor Trail by Gallagher Avenue, 10 in Ordisio Park, 10 in the Willows, and 5 at Clem Macron Park. John, Steve Ledgerton, and myself are going to go out and actually stake the sites for those trees. And they'll probably be all large canopy trees. We're going to have an event because these trees are going to be planted by DeVita volunteer employees, about 30 of them. And we have a little bit of a plan right now. We're all going to meet at the Willows. They're going to be taught on how to plant a bare root tree. Hopefully, we're going to have a table there with a banner, and we're going to have croissants and coffee and water. And because we're all tree huggers, we're going to have granola bars. It's going to be an event. There's going to be photographers there and all that other good stuff. Representatives from PHS will be there also. So on Saturday, April 23rd, hopefully we'll have good weather, and we'll have a little kickoff, a welcome, and all that other stuff, and probably be done by noon with the 30 people planting 30 trees. So it should be a fun event and good PR.
That's fantastic, yeah. Well,
But
I'll
the
have to.
best part of it is,
Yeah,
they're
let's hear
actually
it.
going to give us some money.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, PHS is going to give us $500 to cover the refreshments and $1,000 for our time in putting this thing together. So they're going to make a check out to Radnor Township, and hopefully it'll be put in the Shade Tree Commission budget.
That's great.
Yeah, so
Thank
that
you.
Great
was
job, Frank.
unexpected.
That's fantastic news, and I think this is a great project to pilot for this year, and I hope we can do something like this year after year. I did just get a note from James saying he can't, or we can't hear him, I guess. James and Eileen, go ahead and speak. Yeah, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Ian, we might have a Zoom audio issue. So yeah, we will, all of us, try and make it out the 23rd and help as we can. In regards to staking and any other logistics, is there anything noteworthy that we have to finalize with the tree tenders, or anything that needs approval?
Nothing that I can think of that requires approval. Jenny's been working with the tree tenders to stake in the residential side. I still have to put out an invitation to them and also the Shade Tree Commission to invite you to come out. It would be nice if we had a Radnor tree tender, because they're trained at each of the park sites, just to be there. Not expecting any of Ricky's people to be there on Saturday. They're going to be doing the
Sure.
50 trees.
And we have enough tree tenders to have one at each park theoretically?
Easily.
Okay,
Because
good.
we've got 6 that are on the group,
Okay,
and they're all
great.
registered with PHS.
As far as tools and such, have we gotten that nailed down?
The hammer is in midair. It's about to come down. We need about 20 shovels, probably 6 mattocks to deturf the area that's being dug up. And I need probably 3 stake drivers, those things you put over the stake and hit with
Okay,
the mallets.
okay.
So I've got volunteers from Matt, James, and Ricky to supply the tools. And I just have to get some specific numbers for each of those 3 people. I have to have a sign-out sheet, so when people take them, we know we get them back and stuff. But I think we're in good shape. Matt, Ricky, James.
Yeah, by Friday, Frank, I'll tell you what I got coming
Okay.
your way.
If I can let James and Matt go first, and they'll tell you whatever they have, and whatever we need to make up, we'll make up.
Okay, great,
the
thank you.
difference.
Thank you, Ricky.
And just so you all know, Odoricio, those trees that we have removed there, it's ready for the planting. So we had to, in that tree grove down to right off West Wayne Avenue, in order to clear the space to plant the trees there, we had to take down those ash trees that John had looked at. We had a report from Mr. Golis about how bad some of the condition of those trees were. We went over and inspected them, and they were in bad shape. We had to remove them. So we have the 10 trees there that we're planting from, that Frank was able to get from PHS, but we also have Tammy Cohen, who's heading up the Arbor Day, who's planting another 3 trees over at Odoricio. So they don't have to be in that same spot, but, you know, it'll be a big year for Odoricio as far as planting trees and even having Arbor Day there.
That's great. Thank you, Ricky. And how many total were removed from Odoricio?
11.
Okay. And all ash?
Is one walnut?
Yeah, there was one walnut tree.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Frank, on the 30 update. Jenny, all you.
So on the resident side, we are still in need of 2 volunteers to help with staking, one for the Bryn Mawr area and one for sort of the Newtown Square, Radnor, Devon area. So if anybody can step up and help with that, that would be great.
Jenny, I'll take the Newtown Square, Radnor, Devon
Okay.
portion.
Thanks a lot, Seth.
Mm-hmm. And I did see, I think somebody emailed back regarding the Villanova area.
Yeah, Gretchen is going to take
Gretchen.
Villanova,
Okay.
and Sarah Pilling's taking the other half of Bryn Mawr.
Okay.
I'm going to do Wayne, and another tree tender, Mary Schmidt's going to do the other half of Wayne.
Okay.
And and James is basically doing his trees. We sort of had a bit of confusion there because I didn't realize James was getting all shade trees. So, Ricky, the list that I give you is going to be different from the spreadsheet that I sent out, because James is going to get all shade trees except for 2 red buds. So we took them off the PHS list. So you're going to be mostly planting all the flowering ones. So I'll get you a new list that'll have everybody. And by the way, I want to give you a big shout out for Mrs. Leeming, the stump lady. She's so thrilled that you got out there to remove her stump. So I want to pass that on to you as a
Nice.
big thank you
Quite
from her.
welcome. Quite welcome.
And how are we coming on getting the stakes then?
Yeah, we have them all. We have 80 here, and then if we need any, we'll be able to pick up some more, plus John has some.
Okay, so where should I tell everybody to come pick them up, guys?
So what we did in the past is the bench right underneath
Okay,
of the building right here, we stuck them underneath there and just put for shade tree commission. That's what we did before. Yep.
okay, great, thanks. So as of Friday, they should all be there? Okay, sounds good. So otherwise, I think we're in good shape on it, Seth.
That's great. So we'll stake between this weekend and planting,
And, yeah,
is
like,
the idea?
Yeah, I'm asking everybody to try and reach out to your list
Mm-hmm.
so that folks know when you're coming, give them an opportunity to chat with you about
Sure.
where to put the tree. Some of them have communicated to me that they're already going to put a stake of their own and/or spray paint where they want it. I've let them know that if we see an issue, we'll let them know. If we find out something from one call, we will also let them know that that might not work in that location, so they're all sort of aware of it. And they also know they have to water for a year. We've let them know that. Everybody, I just want to say everybody is so excited and loves this project. So thank you, everybody who's working
That's
on it.
great.
And, I mean, we get so much enthusiasm from the residents
That's
about
great.
it. And
Thank you, Jenny.
I think I would chime in with James about maybe next year just offering shade because of the overwhelming number of people that went with a floral. I mean, and our whole purpose here is to increase the shade tree canopy, and the florals don't really do that.
Right.
As James said, it is like eye candy. I mean, I get it, but that's not really our mission,
Sure.
with this. It's more to, so we might have less people sign up, but we may have better impact, on the canopy itself. So food for thought for the fall.
Agree, yeah, agree.
Yeah,
That's
and we have
great.
like 14 people already signed up for fall. That's what I mean. It's been a very popular offering,
Great.
so.
Thank you for all the work on this, Jenny. I know it's
Yeah, sure.
a lot of coordination. In regards to, I know previously we would print a flyer for care instructions and bring that along with the stake, but it sounds like we've given them plenty of information thus far, and to be tree-friendly, emailing them the information rather than handing a flyer.
Yeah, I think I communicated to them in the email, so
Okay.
save us one less step to have to do.
Sure, so really go out, stake, have a conversation, and
Yeah, just
then
knock on the
Ricky
door, make
gets
sure
to
people know
plant all
you're
the
coming.
trees. And thanks so much, Ricky, and the Public Works team for chipping in. I know this is a big burden and doesn't go unnoticed. Great.
Oh, and Frank, I'll reiterate and offer to man the table for you on the 23rd.
Okay, we'll put a croissant aside for you.
Okay, and some big coffee.
And I'm assuming we'll notify Molly, of course, of all of this as well.
I did write Molly.
Yeah, we can hear you, James, now.
Here's now. All right, cool.
So we did write Molly. We're trying to get the Radnor Township logo on the sign with PHS and Arbor Day.
Great.
And I'm just asking for advice. Where do I get a table? Where do I get a banner and stuff?
Sure,
like that? I haven't
great.
heard back from her yet, but I'll
Okay.
keep at it.
And when is Ricky and crew picking the trees up?
Probably the 20th of April,
Okay.
which is a Thursday. Ricky's guys will probably start planning immediately.
Mm-hmm.
They'll distribute the trees to the 4 park locations, trail locations,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just looking for armed guards to guard them till the weekend, and then we'll plant them over the weekend.
Great.
And Sunday's our rain date, the
Yep.
24th.
Okay. And there's probably zero chance of not being able to pick these up on the 20th? Sounds like PHS has a pretty good,
Oh, yeah, yeah, this will
Operation
be the
going.
3rd time we did it. They've got a big warehouse down at the Navy
Mhm.
Yard, and they've got 1,500 trees down there they're distributing this year between Philadelphia and the county areas, which is their biggest year.
that's great. And where did we net out? Are we number 1 or number 2 getting the most trees?
We're 1 or 2. I think she said we're in the top 3.
That's great.
And the interesting, DeVita, which is their headquarters for this part of the country, is in Malvern. They chose Radnor as the place where they wanted to volunteer. So that kind of came together, which was pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
I guess we should expect to see a plan from them coming in the near future for development.
We will
Yeah,
will
yeah.
not use this to skew the decision there, John. James or Eileen, now that we can hear you, any commentary?
I was saying previously, I'm so impressed by what Frank was saying. I wrote down, that's amazing. I don't remember the specific item except for I was kind of floored. And Ginny, great job with everything you're doing on this spring tree planting. It sounds wonderful.
Great. All right. So wheels are in motion. Any other details that we want to chat about before we move on to next item?
Could I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
John was talking to me. He disturbed me. I'm sorry. Frank, did you say that you wanted the trees dropped off like the night before at the park locations?
I actually said that to get your attention.
Exactly.
So we can talk about how best to get the trees to the locations, but they can go Saturday morning, they can go whenever is convenient for you and your guys, or Steve's guys.
Yeah, I have no problem with dropping the trees off that morning. I would feel safer with, all the money that's being spent, making sure that the trees are safe. They'll be in the Public
Okay.
Works garage.
Thank
and
you.
You just, give us the locations, what trees you want where, and we'll get those dropped off that morning before you guys start. As long as
Okay.
I have the schedule, we can make sure everything stays safe.
Super, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ricky. All right, moving on to ordinance updates. So we're going to cover off on what I had emailed on Monday. So this is section 263, item 6 in the ordinance. So this is the burden on the township for residential hazardous and emergency tree removal. So I know some of us have gotten a chance to read through this, but essentially, there's a couple options that we can discuss tonight to help mitigate, this big burden. There's obviously some pros and cons to the approach that we would take to update this, and we can chat about it tonight. But option A would be to remove this section entirely, which would mean that these sorts of issues would be left to the hands of the residents. And then option B, which we did get some guidance from the solicitor on, what we could potentially update this to do. So the biggest one would be extending the 5-day duration to 30 days. And then you'll see there items 1 through 4. There's a process laid out essentially. And then in addition to that, I did email around just some surrounding townships and how they deal with this. Anywhere from a mix of, again, not even having a defined process for this, all the way to only having a process for this for trees that could be on private property but only affect public safety. So, think along roads or near parks, of neighboring residents. So I'll pause there. Does anyone have any initial thoughts on this? Any ideas as to pros and cons, or which option that we'd like to discuss or pursue?
So,
Seth, you hear me? Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you, James.
yeah, you can hear me now. Sorry, there's somebody else going?
no, go ahead, Dave.
So this is the, what you sent out, Seth?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't notice when you sent, that was good that you sent those out. Most other townships, it does say in their ordinance that they're talking about public property. So if the issue is Ricky going to a private property in a backyard, discussing trees with their neighbors, we can just change it probably to public property. If a tree is dangerous and going to cause damage to private property, that could probably fix the entire thing.
Yeah, there were a couple of the example ordinances in surrounding townships that is exactly, how they deem it. And a couple of thoughts on this would be, at the end of the day, if a tree is hazardous, a resident's probably going to call the township, right? So I think there does still need to be some sort of guidance or process in place rather than just completely removing it. I do, after thinking through this and speaking about it with a few folks, I do like the idea of amending per option B, but also updating per the language of, if it deems a safety hazard for public use and property. So let's say, again, back to that example of a resident lives right next to a park. And let's say there's a hazardous tree that's on private property, but it's about to fall on a tennis court, right, of the park. In that case, then yes, I could see it being to the residents' advantage, and just for plain safety to go through this process with the resident. If they don't end up removing it for reason X, Y, or Z, then the township comes out and takes it down.
I agree with that. That would be anything endangering public property. I've been doing this for over 20 years. If there was ever an issue between property owners that not near public property, the standard was to send a certified letter to your neighbor. That way, their insurance would be on the hook. That's the way we always took care of it. And it seems like everybody else does as well. So I would keep the township out of any private property that's not going to damage public property. They shouldn't be involved in that type of stuff, in my opinion. And I think Marple, the other one, whichever, Lower Marion, the other one, they all agree with that. So, and I think Ricky agrees with that too. So I think we should really think about just going that way. Anything that can cause a threat to public property, and then stay away from anything that's going to cause damage on private property. There's no reason somebody should come up to my house or my neighbor's house in their backyard and say, hey, you have to cut down a tree because we think it's dangerous. Just, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, Ricky and I were being used as like a mediation firm between residents, and it was being probably discussed throughout the township with other arborists saying, hey, neighbor dispute, just get the township involved, then you can get your neighbor to take the tree down.
Right.
So, I mean, me and Ricky spent countless hours last year going through and meeting with people about trees we should have not even been involved in. So that's what prompted this.
Right. Yeah, I think it all comes down to safety. Public safety, yep.
So
And-
Seth, where does, if there's a, let's say I live on West Wayne Avenue, so I have, a walnut that's dying over the electric lines in the right of way. It's my tree, it's on my property, but it's in the right of way. Where does that fall in this?
Because it's in the right of way, close to the street, I would say that falls into a public safety issue, and then that's where this,
We handle that
17
daily.
point.
I mean, that's very common. I mean, we see one or two of them a week, and that's handled every week
Yeah,
by Public
the
Works.
reason I bring it up is, John, is that a couple years ago or last year, I actually forget, I mean, the township was thinking about putting trees in the right-of-way, the responsibility back to the owners of the property those trees sat on. So I don't know where that stands.
That died when Mr. Z moved to Cheltenham.
So if that's completely dead, that's fine. But it's a township responsibility right now.
for right-of-way trees, right?
So Seth, as you saw my email, I had sympathy to put these costs on the homeowners, which I think is probably the main reason most people say they can't do it.
Sure.
Because they do run thousands of dollars. So I saw some of these other ones wanted to tack on costs and interest and all that, making the penalty even worse on them. So I don't know what my fellow Shade Tree Committee people thought about that. I mean, could the township work out a payment plan with them? And if they default, then put a lien on their property? I don't know how that financial piece of it would work out. I just have sympathy to them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should introduce any penalties. I don't think that's necessarily fair. And one question I did have was, how often are liens actually exercised? I would imagine that's a last resort situation, and I'm sure the township does work with the resident, of course. Question for you, Ricky. Do you know how often the lien situation is exercised, knowing that that's a last resort?
Yes, it is a last resort. If I was to answer how many times we've liened a house, from the situations I've dealt with, it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
Most people have, acquiesced and took care of the tree issue. The difference is, and this is part of what I typed in the email, if we do use option B for situations, I would defer to the township arborist giving a timeline, because 5 days, 30 days, if you have to take down a tree and it costs thousands, it may not be that easy to get someone to come out. I mean, we had one tree that we looked at, and it was on private property, but it easily cost 5 figures to get it removed. And so if anyone has to, I'll say cough up that money unexpectedly, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want that done to me. So
Sure.
I would defer to what, every time John looks at a tree, he gives me a timeline that we have to have it removed by. So that's what we operate with. But in answer to your question, we haven't had to lien anyone yet. Most people have, and they also keep me in the loop. So I'm very I'll say lenient when it comes to that, because I don't want to take it to there. As long as you keep in contact with me and you let
Sure.
me know how the process is going, I'll work with you. But it's when I don't get any answer or anything like that, then it
Sure.
has to go to that extent.
Have there been any scenarios where the township has removed the tree and then charged back that cost to the homeowner for payment?
Not while I was involved. I don't know if John has had experience with
There
that.
was some underneath Mr. Z, for sure, there was a few,
Okay,
at least 10 that I remember.
okay.
Yep.
To Ginny's point in regards to financial fairness, I do think it's advantageous to, propose to the solicitor, then the board, having some sort of, if that scenario happens, having some sort of payment plan situation, I think would be fair to at least, hint at, maybe not exactly define. Just getting real quick back to the,
Seth, I'm
Sure,
sorry,
yeah.
could I jump in 1 second? The one thing that you had mentioned earlier that I agree with James 100% in regards to the danger of any hazardous tree in public space. Some of that is related to parks, like you mentioned, but then we had one location, Chew Lane, where it was actually a school bus stop. So it was on private property, but because that's where the parents would stand and wait for the school bus, we had to kind of intervene.
Sure.
So, there's going to be differences even in public where it still may,
Right.
go into private that may not be related to a park, but we still may have to act. So I know it's a whole bunch of different situations and scenarios, but definitely the between neighbor situations
Mhm.
is hard to mitigate
Mhm.
because you'll have some residents, unfortunately, will look into someone's yard and see something and even have an arborist look in and give an opinion. And for us, it's not easy to basically walk on someone's property uninvited and give an opinion. So once the township gets involved, the part that we have to also remember is once we're involved, it becomes legal.
Sure.
So we have to be very cognizant of,
Mhm.
what position we put ourselves in.
Mhm. Ricky, what would you say are the number of public versus private scenarios that you guys have to deal with? Is it 80-20?
Yeah. I have had one that was public, everything else is private. So I
Okay,
would say
so this would-
90% of them.
This would be a good solve
Yeah.
for
yeah.
the burden, okay. And if, just stepping back, as a taxpayer, I don't see this being a value-add service to, have the township be removing trees on the taxpayer's dime. I don't think that makes sense. So I don't think we're hurting, anything from that perspective, so that makes sense. Real quick, back to the duration. So I do think it would make sense to have, something defined, because the last thing we want to get into is, well, John, of course, we trust your judgment, but, putting some marker in the sand to say, maybe it's not 30 days, maybe it's at maximum 90 days, 180 days. Any thoughts on, from the time the township recommends removal, how long we'd like to give residents to remove? Any thoughts on that? What do you think, John?
Now, the only thing Ricky just pointed out, which we've talked about a million times, is, we have some trees that are imminent, need to be removed ASAP, to the standard 60 to 90 days. So I guess it'll be case-by-case scenario.
Sure.
Um,
I would say, yeah, case
It's a
by
tough
case,
one.
so like the emergency, of course, but if we could put a maximum on it, just so we
Yeah, I
have some
mean,
parameters.
like Ricky pointed out, the one tree we looked at, the owner was getting quotes of $25,000, $28,000 to remove one tree. So, if we go there and say, hey, this tree needs to be removed, it's gonna fall into a public thoroughfare, and it's $20,000 tree, it's,
Yeah, that's tough.
where do we balance there with our residents who we're, supporting here?
Sure,
Seth?
yeah.
I'd say we would probably want to have a range in there instead of a specific number of days. you know, between 5 and 30 days, depending on the severity of the problem, something along those lines. You're always more accurate with a range than having a specific point.
Yeah, I think the range gets tough with the emergency removals. So that would be a scenario, John, and correct me, but let's say there's an emergency tree on private property and the resident can't get it taken care of within a reasonable amount of time. So that's when the township would just come in and take care of it.
Correct.
And at that point.
But we're not bankers either, so we gotta be careful.
Right, exactly. So my point to not having a minimum or a range, but just having a maximum. But to John's point, if
Seth?
somebody gets a $20,000 quote, it's not
Seth,
necessarily fair.
Could I interject?
Sure.
That the one thing, and we've been fortunate that this hasn't happened yet, that scenario where we had an imminent danger tree situation, so we had to act, you know, the next day. But the one thing that we have to be mindful of is if it was an imminent tree situation, there's legal matters where we just can't run on someone's property.
Sure.
Like, there's a process that has to happen legally before we can just go on and, excuse the expression, but all guns blazing to correct the matter. So again, I agree with the timeline, and I think all the language should be put in there, but we still have to be very careful about how we proceed when it comes to walking onto private property. You know,
Sure.
There's a situation where we went to that he had spoke of 255, where the gentleman had threatened to get a court order. So, you know, the resident does have rights. So I don't
Sure.
want to, I don't want to trample on those rights that they have.
Absolutely.
But I also want to make sure everyone's safe at the same point.
Right. It all comes down to public safety. And just to outline those proposed steps, just so, you know, if there's any clarification, we can chat about it quickly. So, item 1, have John come out, prepare a report documenting the hazard and recommendation for removal. Item 2, provide the report to the homeowner and give him or her a deadline to remove and provide a copy of the code. Item 3, if they can't remove the tree, then the township does it if they give us permission. And item 4, if they don't remove the tree and won't let the township do it, then the solicitor writes a letter giving a further deadline, or the township will seek a court order. I guess one piece of clarification that I have, item 3, if they can't remove the tree, then the township does it if they give us permission. In that scenario, wouldn't we then still request a chargeback for that, right?
Yeah,
would be
under
the
no
idea.
circumstances will the township
Eat-
do a free tree removal.
Eat the cost, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that, I don't want to put that out there.
Yeah. So we'll make sure that's in the language. And again, providing some sort of language to a payment plan or something, I think is advantageous. Any other, James or Eileen, do you have any further thoughts?
Hey, can you hear me, Seth?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Just, are we still keeping the private property on?
Nope. So I think we're leaning in the direction of option B, removing private property unless it causes a public safety
Gotcha.
issue.
Perfect.
And I'm good with that too. I just didn't follow, where did we land with regards to if it's on private property, falling on another residence's property or causing a hazard there?
Unless it's that would be gone, unless it's a public safety
Okay.
issue. So like near a bus stop or something.
Yeah, but if it's between two residences, we would stay out of that.
Exactly. That's where,
Okay.
you know, they'll have to figure it out themselves.
Yep.
If it ends up falling, that's what insurance is for.
Okay, got it. I'm good.
Okay. So just one last specific, the maximum duration thing. I mean, we could say 12 months, we could say 6 months. I just want to make sure it doesn't, you know, we recommend the removal and it just sits and sits and sits and sits.
Say a timeline based on Public Works and the consulting arborist.
Okay,
Keep it open-ended, based on the severity longevity, all
Yeah,
that
the
good stuff.
severity.
I guess, yeah, to your point, I mean, there's always nuances, right? So there could be a tree that doesn't need to be removed today, maybe in the next couple of years. Right. Okay. All right, so as far as next steps for this, what we would do is have the solicitor draft up a recommendation, and then we would bring this to the board for approval, an amendment. So I'll make a motion to put forth, we have this option B with the amendment of limiting it to public safety specifically and excluding private property with there's a couple other revisions that we spoke to, which is item 3, making sure we have language around reimbursement to the township, potential payment plan or thereof. I'll make a motion to proceed as followed. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Merry Christmas, Ricky. Well, we'll see. Lisa will be the decider there. Okay. Item 8B, so the long-term ordinance updates, I think we can table that until next time, if that works for you, Eileen, unless you had anything you wanted to specifically touch on there.
That totally works for me. Thanks, Seth.
I do know, if you look at, and you won't have this sheet, James or Eileen, but I put together our 4th sheet here, the 2022 goals, which is the second kind of immediate ordinance update that we can work on next would be the representation of Parks and Rec. So we have Bill here tonight with us. Thank you so much for volunteering your time. So we don't have to dig into that tonight, but for next time, have an open discussion around, I know there was a proposal of, does this arrangement still make sense? Should it go the other way? Where we have a representation on Parks and Rec. So there's plenty of things to talk through there and discuss. But again, we'll save that for next time. Anything else? Oh, you know what? I do have something else, which is on the next page here. So the team spreadsheet to track tree removals. I've been slowly picking away at this, and we'll touch on this more so as a milestone review when it makes sense. I think that covers old business from my end. Does anyone else have any old business they'd like to chat about? Lisa.
Just one thing for Mr. Golis.
Yeah.
Matt, whenever you get a chance, can you reach out to TIG? They've updated the urban forest matrix a little bit, and there's some new updates on mapping and stuff. So he said to reach out to him, and he'll send you the new file. Perfect. And yeah, whenever, not a rush.
What do you got, Lisa?
So I just wanted to bring something up that's been brought to my attention, and it actually is in reference to the property that Matt had brought up earlier. And I think just looking forward as you guys are, talking about the ordinance and continue to talk about, different ways to enhance it or adjust. And one of the concerns that was brought forward to me was that, once our staff had said, there was a stop work order, things were still happening and things had happened prior to there being, I think, a stop and some tree protection put up. So I don't know if there's something in the ordinance, you guys know it far better than I, or something that we could adjust around that or consider. So that when our staff says to somebody, you guys have to stop the work, cease and desist, that really means like cease and desist, and give, I think, and Ricky and John, you guys certainly correct me if I'm wrong, give our staff a little bit of, some teeth in order to make an effective order kind of stick in a way. And I know that there's always a lot of, Ricky, I take seriously what you say about, the private property owners, have rights, and we need to be respectful of that. But if there are things within our ordinance that have been, or other ordinances that have been we feel we need to ask people to stop work because we need to go back and make sure that those things are being taken care of first. A stop work might mean a stop work, and that would give our staff something, and especially around trees. So to make sure that stop work, put up some tree protection, that all needs to happen, and nothing else can happen until that happens. And I think that right now the ordinance either isn't clear or maybe that doesn't exist. So I just put that out there as something for you all to think about and consider as you're moving through, because that has come to my attention, and it really was around that, I think, specific to that property that Matt mentions.
Sounds good, Lisa. Will do. Eileen, take note. You're the ordinance queen.
Perfect.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it sounds like most cases get to a legal battle, but if we can obviously avoid that, and yeah, that's good. Yeah, there's always going to be a.
Friday was the first one in 10 years, I believe, that
Yeah.
pretty much said get off our property, so.
Mhm.
Pretty good.
Good. But will do, Lisa. Thank you. All right. Anything else under old business? All right. Item 9, new business. I'm going to lump new business and annual goals together because they're both very similar. So if you flip to the last page in your little packet here, James and Eileen, again, you won't have this, but I'll speak through it, and we can feel free to discuss as necessary. So the idea with this is we'll use these 7 items as our stakes in the ground, pun intended, and goals for 2022. So item 1, spring planting, that's well underway, so we'll be able to check that off the list soon enough. Item 2, fall planting, so again, with our remaining funds, with funds coming in from fee in lieu of and otherwise, we'll have the funds to do a fall planting. As discussed, we'll determine whether or not doing a bare route versus B&B, being it the fall, B&B is probably the way we're going to go. So that's on the list. It's a goal. Item 3, plant a total of 150 trees. So with the spring planting, we're already at 96. So that goal should not be far off through the rest of the year. Again, it's not that we necessarily have to plant the 150 trees. It's just more of coordinating or being involved, whether it's through township projects or other volunteer initiatives or what have you. And of course, this is just a goal. Item 4, the ordinance update specific to the short-term priorities. So as we just went through tonight, the emergency tree removal, so we'll get that moving. And then the second item, the personnel scenario that we'll discuss next meeting. Item 5, the ordinance update, the comprehensive update. So Eileen is running point on this. Again, we'll get back to this once we get over the hump of these other items. So the goal with this goal would be, I'd push for us to at least have something to hand off to the solicitor to make proposed updates and get this in front of the board before the end of the year. Again, we can batch these if it makes most sense. So, split it up into 2 or 3 batches. We can pick off, say, 5 higher priority items for the ordinance for this year. We can do 5 next year, just knowing that, some of these can be fairly complicated, and we don't want to hold, all of the other updates up just because of 1 or 2 sticking points. And then item 6, so Lisa, thank you for the loud and clear reminder last time, the tree maintenance proposal to the board. So this obviously would help with, all of the projects that we're speaking to. So for instance, if we wanted to establish the annual township spring tree planting, so making sure, obviously, we have the appropriate resources to do so without stretching Public Works thin, and obviously all of the other maintenance and items that we'd like to see happen, especially in the parks and otherwise. So the goal with that would to form more so a business proposal with costs and projects and definitives so that we can get that in front of the board. And then item 7, last but not least, shade tree ordinance communication plan. So we've been, again, talking about this forever. We've been doing a lot of good, posts with Molly regarding the plantings and some other things. I know I just shared the latest master flyer with Gretchen. She's going to be sharing that around. I think the last time we discussed, essentially doing a mailer just for the conscious of the budget, and then also, obviously, we want to save paper, save trees. So putting together tidbit posts and making sure we get that flyer around to all of the commissioners to share through their respective communication channels, email, social, or otherwise. So out of those 7, does that sound like they're fairly attainable for 2022? Any comments or questions around what I have proposed?
Seth, I'll just speak up. I really like the way you took the ordinance number 4 and 5 and broke it into short-term, long-term, and even took the long-term and kind of parceled it out into like 2 buckets. I think that's a really good approach. And I like everything else, and I like number 3, putting a line in the sand, saying how many trees we want to plant. So I think that's great.
Great. Thank you, Eileen.
I'll just add that your plans to communicate more about the shade tree ordinance, I think, is absolutely spot on. I think that there are many people that don't realize we have it. I know we know that that's an issue. So, and I would also suggest that when you guys get to that point, I think maybe you should come and present to the Board of Commissioners and engage the commissioners' help and support in pushing that out as well. Most of the commissioners have communications and can support that, but I think also if you guys come and share this, at the Board of Commissioner meeting, it would help, heighten the awareness to it as well. And
Sure.
anything, I will say personally that anything we can do to help promote it and make, create higher awareness to the fact that it exists, I think will prevent a lot of problems and the things that John and Ricky end up having to deal with in the long run. So I commend that idea, and I'm totally supportive of it.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. All right.
So, Seth, would we approach this through a committee, like have a committee for each one of these?
Yeah, I was...
Just to, like Eileen's taking care of ordinance, she'd be the chair of that committee or something?
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking of attaching names to these, but I know we're doing a great job at dividing and conquering, but we can certainly touch on that right now. But let's go down through the list, and we can attach names and quick chat about it. I think that's a great idea. So obviously, item 1's the spring planning. Frank and Ginny and Ricky and John, helping with that. So that's already covered. The fall planting, I would propose that we take the burden off of the township for this and, do the B&B planting as we've done in the past. But that would obviously involve the help of Ginny and promotion there. I would be willing to help with that as well. And obviously, anyone who wants to join in.
Well, the fall planting can include 30 $55 trees, so we still might want to...
The bare root.
I'm sorry, yes, the
Yeah,
bare root.
And PHS offers the, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's up for discussion whether or not we want to do, half and half, bare root or B&B, or whatever that nets out to be. But obviously, Frankie would be integral to that if you want to be.
I do.
Plant a total of 150 trees. That's a collective effort. The ordinance update, the short-term stuff, I'll take care of that and own that with the support of everyone here. Item 5, ordinance update, the comprehensive update. That's Eileen's baby.
Yep, I'm
Or
good.
toddler, whatever you want to do.
Hopefully we'll get it to be a teenager.
Yeah, we're getting there. Item 6, the tree maintenance proposal. I know, just speaking historically, Matt has done a bunch of good work there and information. I think I'll volunteer to own that, but obviously I'll lean on all of us here for specifics and information when it comes to that. And then item 7, the shade tree ordinance communication plan. So I think, between Ginny and I, we've been, and Frank really have been involved with this, and we'll, now that we have a good path forward, we'll work to get that into place. I had put together that master flyer, so I'll own the piece of that, and then we'll make sure we get back on the horn with Molly and.
I think, Seth, one piece of that I could put my name down on
Sure.
is getting it out to the realtor offices.
Sure, okay.
Because Claire and I had
Yeah.
worked together and come up with a whole grocery list of them and who the managers were. So now that you've got the flyer all ready to go, I think it's just a matter of trotting it around to the real estate offices,
Perfect.
which I'm happy to do.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you, Ginny. Any commentary around those assignments and general plan and goals? Sound good? Thanks for that, Frank.
Seth, could I say something just so everyone knows? It's not
Sure.
around the plan, but with the spring tree planting, since you guys basically were all moving forward with it, when I spoke to Bill White today, he wanted us to make sure after you guys vetted the plan and we're okay with it moving forward, that the township was going to go with pushing this information out on all of our media outlets, just to, give it as much press as it deserves for the job that, all you ladies and gentlemen did with putting this plan together and having all of us be able to execute it. So we just want to make sure everyone is well aware of everything that's going to happen in these next few weeks.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Ricky.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's a great collaborative effort, and, it's great to have those B&B trees dropped in by All Seasons, but I think, bringing everyone together and getting volunteers and sticking a shovel in the ground is, can't attach a monetary value to that, so all good stuff. All right, anything else on goals? Before we move into item 11, hazardous trees. All right, good deal. Yes,
Just a couple things for new business. I'm sorry.
no worries.
Before we end here, just wanted to, regarding Ginny's proposal, and I talked to her about this, that I think going forward, we should really try to plant canopy trees instead of flowering trees. I think that's really what the Shade Tree Commission is here for. And I think we should try to keep that in mind. If it's, if we go with private planting companies or anything else, I think we really need to make that a priority. And then other new business is to Lisa. Congratulations, Lisa. I won't see you, but she's running for state rep, and she's going to get a lot of trees for us when she gets there. So,
Yeah, that is
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, thank you. Wow, James, you set a high bar there.
Great, thanks, James. Yeah, and I agree. I think we would all agree to focus on the big shade trees. Again, it is tough to have residents commit to those big trees, but I think there's certainly enough residents in the township, and I think we can sell it. So let's see what we can do. All right. Item 11, hazardous trees. So there were a few listed here. Are there anything or any trees or properties that are noteworthy, John or Ricky?
Other than our Drossen Farm, along the corridor of Newtown Road, there's numerous hazards from the black locust that are declining, and also on the township parcel we have there. So Jim Moore did a total evaluation of the HOA and obviously found a large percentage of black locusts that are in need of removal.
Great.
And I'm just going to tag on to that and really commend the HOA. They did a lot of work, in evaluating that area. They also have been very open and communicative with me, and I think John and Ricky and Steve. So, the HOA has only recently been, it's under the, I guess, the responsibility of the residents now. It was under the responsibility of Mr. Scott and the builders, but now it is under the responsibility of the residents that live there, and they are doing a really good job. And I just wanted to let you guys know, they're very communicative. I was able to put information out to the residents in the area so that they know that, Shade Tree has reviewed this and looked at everything. Because, anytime there's a mass, removal of trees, everyone gets a little concerned. So I just want to commend the Ardrossan HOA for their work.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Trees removed by Radnor Township, 428 Boxwood, a 35-inch twin ash. No necessity to talk about that. Nobody's in the audience. I'm assuming, Ian, we don't have any capability for participation over the Zoom. So we can skip past that. Before we close, anything else anyone have? Speak now or forever hold your trees. All right. Thank you all. That closes the meeting.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, James. Good night.
Bye.